Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. This is Hugh Ballou, founder and president of Vision. It's the synergy of a common vision. Vision Leadership Foundation. Our work is transforming leaders, transforming organizations, transforming lives. And today's episode is about ourselves. How do we learn about ourselves? How do we become better leaders? We've had so many people talk about different aspects. This one is really, really helpful in my short visit with my guest, Abbie Maroño. She's going to talk about facing shame and empowering leaders. So, Abbie, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Before we get into our topic, tell people a little bit about yourself and your background and your passion for your work.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have a PhD in psychology and I was a professor of psychology, full-time professor in the UK. Most of my work was focused around security and information elicitation. So my PhD was specialized in behavioral analysis, and I work in information security now, which isn't the topic of my book because I work now, as you said, in the field of shame and empowerment, and largely related to trauma recovery and anything in that nature. And this really started as a passion project because I had gone through a very difficult upbringing and I had suffered abuse from my mother very young. And then I had gone through some severe traumas, including sexual assault myself. And I was looking for a way out. And I was turning to all these popular science books, searching for a way to help me because I couldn't understand how I was feeling and I couldn't understand why I was behaving in the way that I was behaving. And I was going through really maladaptive cycles and I just could not seem to get myself out. And what I was finding was these popular science books were really empowering for a very short period of time, but I was training to be a scientist at the time, and I was recognizing that the messages were well-meaning, but they weren't in line with how human beings actually function. So I stopped reading the popular science books and I stopped going on YouTube and looking for inspirational talks. And what I did do is I turned to the literature and I imagined, okay, imagine if I'm a data point. What would I look for? What would I tell someone else? What would I do if I was a patient? And I managed to pull myself out of a really dark place by understanding how emotions work, how the human brain works, how the human body works. And I got myself within a couple of years to really the worst I had ever been in my life. And I was on the brink of suicide to the happiest I'd ever been. I finally understood why I was behaving the way that I was, and I understood how to correct and improve my behavior. So what I wanted to do with my work is I felt that I had a platform and I had a real need to give this to other people. I felt it was almost my responsibility as a professor at the time to give it to my students and to make the science accessible. And then I moved out of academia because I realized science is accessible in academia. Academics know how to read research papers, they know how to get the science, but most people don't. Outside of academia, that information is not really known because they're the ones turning to the popular science books and they're the ones that really, really need it. So I made it a lifetime mission of mine. And my motto was called Making Science Accessible.
And we've covered a lot. What do you want to, what's a closing thought? What do you want to leave people with today?
I want people to realize that it's not attainable to be bulletproof and it's okay to be flawed. It's okay to be human. It's actually human to be flawed, and it makes us authentic. But we have a responsibility to understand our own emotional experience as a leader.
Love it. Abbie, I've been doing this a long time and I've learned a lot today. Thank you so much for being my guest today on the Nonprofit Exchange.
Thank you so much for having me.